This is a podcast from the Angel News Network with author Joel Anastasi interviewing the Archangel Gabriel as channeled by Philip Elton Collins.
Greetings, beloved friend. I, Archangel Gabriel, we of Archangel Gabriel, come to you at this most challenging time within your Earth history. It is time for humanity to know, accept and apply that you are so-called God experiencing itself. This epoch, the Aquarian Age, is the awakening of this truth, and all who can resonate and know this truth. You have a creative seed within you that is creating all the time. Dear ones, you are the creator creating all the time. If God is all there is, you are it. For far too long, many have used God, Christ, to control others through something called man-made religion. It is not to say religion has not done some good, but more have been controlled and killed through the name of God through religions than any other source on this planet. Wise people looked at this course of human history and knew the state and the church must be separated from the common good of all. Your beloved St Germain inspired the founding fathers of the United States of America of this truth and reminded them to be vigilant. Now, extreme forces are attempting to return humanity to another dark age through the integration of state and religion once again. Dear ones, the big lie is that God is not outside of you. And those who intend to control you do not want you to know this. But there are false prophets saying they have the true connection to God, and God is telling them what to do and share with you in the name of God. None of this is true. God tells no one what to be or do. These religious politicians are not sent by God, not chosen by God, and some are even criminal. Let us quote one of your farmers. The gas coming out of the cows ain't near as dangerous as the BS coming from your so-called religious politicians and some preachers. End quote. In an attempt to understand creation, humanity invented God and religion to explain what they could not understand. Now you can understand. Are you ready to accept the truth of who you are? Creation created you to create. We of the higher realms are merely aspects of your higher selves, your divinity, your eternal divine self that can never die. For teaching false truth, there are karmic consequences in the form of karmic debt. Remember, what you call evil or bad are the other sides of good and right. They exist so you can know even better within this dense frequency within which you reside what is actually going on. In reality, energetically, they don't exist. They are what you call in your vernacular good and bad deeds. You will never know the truth in a world where false prophets are making the rules. We shall repeat that. You will never find truth in a world where false prophets are making the rules. It is time, if you so choose, to release attachments to people and beliefs that prevent you from connecting to your higher God self. Remember, they lied to you because the truth might provoke you to make choices that wouldn't serve their interests. Also remember to always trust your resonance and instincts. They are the messages from your eternal higher spirit. It is time for humanity to become as wise as your higher God self, if you so choose, dear ones. When the one called Christ spoke and said, "These things I do, you too shall do, and do greater," you're being reminded that the divine spark dwells in each of you. Remember, Miracles dwell in the unseen. Now, how may I further help you, dear one of whom we knows each other so well, do we not?
We do, Gabriel. Thank you so much for joining us today. What a delight to talk to you.
Indeed it is a mutual joy.
I was taking notes on some of the things you said, and one of the things that stood out strongly for me when you said that some of these religious politicians and others are attempting to return us to a dark age. And when you said that, I thought of some of the recent rulings of our Supreme Court that is denying the right of women to manage their own bodies and raising questions about the right of gay people to exist and to marry who they love, and issues of sexuality generally, and so many of the recent rulings coming out from the Supreme Court. Were you connecting your comments about the dark age to some of these rulings?
Exactly. They're trying to control what they did not create, by not understanding when life even begins on the planet, or the free will and choices of everyone. If it is possible in nature, it is normal. If it is possible in nature, it is normal. And one must understand the truth of when life begins as the first breath. Much of this is being predicated upon ignorance, but mostly it is predicated upon a desire to control others and tell them what to do.
Our democracy, our Constitution, was one of the principles was founded on the idea of the separation of church and state, because obviously when you look back at history, religion was used to create oppressive regimes, the opposite of freedom. And we're beginning to see there was a recent ruling that allowed a football coach to be able to direct his players to make testimonials to God in prayer before a game, and is beginning to erode the separation between church and state, which was one of the founding principles of the United States. What would you say about that?
They know nothing of God, is what we would say, by wishing to inflict God upon an individual, not knowing that God already resides within that individual, and it is up to that individual to find that truth themselves.
We have talked to many divine realm entities. Ashtar was one of the recent ones, the captain of the Galactic Federation, who was very encouraging about that we were on the verge of a new awakening of mankind, and which would be the opposite of the threat of a dark age. I'll use the word bewildered. I think that's stronger than I really mean, but there's a dichotomy between where we're being encouraged to believe that we're on the verge of a new awakening of mankind, and these dark forces that seem to be trying to inhibit that awakening. What would you say about that?
The darkness allows you to know the light. Sometimes you have to go into the darkness to really understand and to see the light. It is what is taking place. And has been explained to you many times before, this is a clearing and cleansing of that darkness, which is an aspect of the light. Does that help you?
So what we're seeing, this thread of the darkness, is really the preamble to the awakening?
Exactly.
So what can we as human beings, what counsel would you give us as human beings to encourage the awakening that we have been promised is happening in mankind?
All of the lessons and teachings and messages coming from the higher realms, begin to listen to them carefully, to store them within your heart, which will allow you to apply them, as this message does as well. To know that you are on a divine path of ascension, following your planet's ascension into becoming beings of light once again. Trust, to surrender, and know this process is true.
I think a key part of that relates to some of your opening comments when you said that we are God creating all the time, that God is not outside of us. And so many of the attempts to appeal to um, supposedly the will of God and religion in our society is the idea that God is outside of us, that we are trying to honor the teachings of a God of the Bible, which is a God outside of us. What would you say about that?
Your religions are based upon many people who think they have a direct connection to God when they are not connected to the God force within themselves. So they create a persona of God to reflect a human and begin to teach that, which in effect is telling people what to do and attempting to control people and to reduce their freedom of choice and will, which is your divine right.
So much of the appeal that they have is, of course, based on the teachings of the Christian religion, which is based on the teachings of Jesus. And it would seem to me that the guiding light would be, if they indeed believe that the teachings of Jesus should guide us forward, is his principal teaching, which is to love one another.
Exactly. If they simply applied that one teaching alone, and none of the others of this avatar who came to awaken humanity through all the spiritual training he had within his youth, every issue within religion would be resolved. Simply love one another. Seeing each other as diversified versions of one another, each other in disguise, all from the same source. If that would simply be applied and held true, so much would be healed, would it not?
And what you just said would be the founding principles of the awakening of mankind that we've been told we should be looking forward to.
Can you, humanity, dear ones, look into the eyes of another and see yourself? Can you see another as a simply diversified version of yourself, be it of another gender, of another sexual preference, of another race, of another religion, of another belief system completely, and simply see yourself within the other? There is the mission.
And there is the founding of democracy, isn't it? That describes democracy.
Exactly. Democracy is based upon that universal truth, that cosmic truth. You are one another. Thus, in turn, you can be equal. Thus, in turn, you can be free. All of this taken place counter to that, being free and loving one another, is based upon an unhealed aspect within the individual, which Archangel Michael, beloved Michael, has taught you for many, many years. The healing all begins with the relationship with self. And the advanced civilizations throughout the universe, all of the spiritual leaders, take a test, go through an initiation process to make sure that every element within themselves is healed, so they can truly and divinely represent the highest intentions of creation itself, to love one another, to be loved, that you came from the love force of love. Yes.
Well, thank you for that beautiful wisdom, Gabriel. Is there anything you'd like to finish? You said so many wonderful things. Is there anything you would add to before we end our conversation?
Let's keep it brief, as we had discussed before, and set an intention of allowing what has been said is enough. And that allows those to assimilate what has been said here. And remember, the big lie is that God is not within you, that God lies outside of you somewhere, and someone, somehow, some way, must connect you with that force within you. Be with that truth.
Thank you, Gabriel, for your beautiful wisdom.
You're welcome, dear one. I'm finished with this, Joel, and I'll go back in if we want to
Okay,
continue.
great. Thank you.
Just tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to stay with Gabriel, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I was standing by, dear ones. I am with you now. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gabriel. Gabriel, we are writing the Emerald Scrolls, as you know, and each one of us, Philip and I, are we're writing 3. The second and third scrolls are going to be essentially the manuscript that we did together for the Second Coming, and my conversations with the 2 Marys. That will be 2 and 3. And the first scroll is going to be based upon all the work and conversations I've had with all the higher realms, what I consider to be important. And one of the things I'm beginning with, keeping it short, not long, but also is to describe creation as we see it, as our technology improves and we see the vastness of the universe as far as matter is concerned. But we've been told that the immensity of matter, as we see it, is just a minuscule compared to all of creation. So what I still am trying to be clear about, so I can be clear in what I write, is what is the purpose of the physical universe, even though it is in its immensity, it is minuscule compared to all of the creative universe. Well, what is the purpose of the physical universe?
It's another way to experience the God within you. There's another way to experience the God within you in another format, in another dimension. And in this case, on this particular planet, you have chosen to be in the densest frequency of the universal plane as a part of your evolutionary process. And in the density, there is the matter. So you are experiencing matter through the choices that you have made in your soul plans to be in the densest frequency in the universal plane. It's simply another way, a denser way, if you will, of experiencing the God force within you. As far as the name nomenclature of the scrolls, they had begun by being called Lemurian scrolls, but whatever name you call them, Emerald, Lemurian, or whatever, that doesn't matter either. It's what you resonate in calling them, dear one. Does that help you?
Yes, and when you talk about our personal experience on Earth, when we look at the vast cosmos, which the veil is being pushed aside as we send out these telescopes further and further into space, seeing all this creative activity going on of stars being created and destroyed and all that. What is the meaning and purpose of all that as we see the activity going out there in the physical world?
What you're seeing is, again, what you're seeing is matter.
Right.
What you're not seeing and beginning to understand that exists is that most of it is unseen. And that is the trauma. Most of the natural scientists begin to believe that most of creation is in a frequency that you are not able to see yet. So you are in the process through quantum physics to understand that there are unseen forces that you've identified as dark matter or black holes or whatever they may see, and you're beginning to see the byproduct of their actions and their activity. But you're beginning to understand and know there is an unseen force behind that. That is what you're in the process of connecting with. That help you?
Yes, it does. Now, the unseen forces, of course, that is, I suppose, of such staggering complexity and immensity. What would you,
it can be defined simply. Yeah. Let us put it this way.
Okay.
The unseen forces are the consciousness of creation. You can't see consciousness in your human formatting, but you can see the consequences of consciousness or unconsciousness. Does that help you?
Yes.
See it as energy expressed in consciousness. Whenever you leave your physical bodies, dear one, you will maintain what is called a cosmic consciousness. You will be aware. You will be consciousness. You will be conscious. The same things are taking place in creation. Does that help you?
Yes. I'm trying to ask an intelligent question that grounds this a little more. So the unseen forces are consciousness, which is essentially God creating it with intention, correct?
Creation. You call it God because you cannot understand the unseen consciousness. So what we were saying earlier in the earlier podcast is people created something called God, perpetuated through something called man-made religions, to really begin to understand what creation really is. That it is energy, in this case, moving into consciousness that can create manifestation, that can create physical form or not. But your true eternal format, even in being human, is non-physical. That is your eternal spiritual body that lives for eternity, which you know. But these are concepts that people are trying to grasp. They're stuck in most people's minds, not within their hearts or truly knowing it. It's more or less of a belief system rather than a scientific knowing, which you're in the process of truly having revealed to you. Do you understand?
Yeah, so when we try to define or understand all that, we use the word God. And so what are we missing when we're attempting to describe all of creation with the word God?
Well, you're using something called human language. So you give it a noun, you give it an adjective, you give it an adverb, you give it a verb, whatever you need to do. And you've done that throughout your history with the creation of so many gods through your human history. I mean, you have nations on the planet now that have hundreds of gods.
Right.
Trying to understand what nature, what creation really is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just an evolutionary process of humanity to some way release all that and get to the cosmic truth of what creation really is.
And the cosmic truth of what creation really is, how would you describe it or explain it?
It is an eternal energetic force that always has been, that always will be. It didn't begin in a big bang. It's not going to end in a big bang. It just always was and ever will be. And that is so difficult for the human mind to grasp because it is stuck in linear time frames of past, present, and future. But creation simply just always was and always will be, which can be very bewildering to the human mind, but it is actually that simple.
It's that simple and that complex, isn't it?
Yeah. In language, remember, all of these energetic codings are going down into this channel's body to become language. And therefore you begin to grasp on some minimal level exactly what is happening. When you've actually freed yourself of language and you are communicating in energetic codes, it becomes perfectly clear. But you're not there yet in your evolutionary path. Do you understand?
Yeah, you said that it didn't begin with the Big Bang. I was watching one of these wonderful documentaries on television about the cosmos as we send out ever greater technology out to take a look at the universe. And one scientist described the universe, when you think of it as a Big Bang and the expansion of the universe, and the stars will, in time, all dim and go to darkness. He said it was like a slow motion fireworks. I thought that captured the description of what he was describing the universe, the physical universe, very well. But you're saying that's not so, right?
Correct. It is not so, but there's nothing wrong with that interpretation as long as it has no intention to harm. The creation always was and is and will be and is forever in motion. In your reality, breath, sound, and motion are your reality. That also takes place out in the unseen aspects of creation, which is most of it. You cannot see the unseen activities and civilizations on the planets in your own solar system. There's so much hidden at this time. There is so much misinformation and non-truths in your world. It hampers you. So what you're in the process of doing in your ascension process through your resonance and discernment is to break free of all of that. Break free of the untruths in your world, those trying to control you and tell you they have a message from God, thus they want to apply that in government and laws, when all that they do is have a hidden agenda to perpetuate their own interest. But you are in the process of beginning to realize and being able to see more of the unseen activities of creation. Remember when the Europeans came over to the what's called the Americas, and the natives of these North American continents were present, and they looked out and saw the ships. They couldn't really see them because they didn't have the consciousness to be able to identify what it was, because it was not part of their world. That is a reflection of what is taking place now with humanity looking out into the cosmos. You can't see it because it isn't in your resonance, it isn't in your discernment, it isn't in your experience. But more and more, that's going to open up as you become more conscious and accepting to the reality there are things you do not know, surrendering to that unknowing, and in that process, more can be revealed. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. And as you're talking, I'm thinking the more we see, we think we're learning vital stuff, and of course we are on some level. But the real meaning is in the unseen. Until we access that, just seeing more of the physical world doesn't really inform us very much.
It's limited, yes.
Yeah.
But that's how you've chosen to experience yourselves and reality at this time. But as your path, your ascension path, in your teachings, as you know, that you are evolving out of that density. And once you are completely out of it, then much of what is being discussed here will become commonplace.
And the avenues for understanding that will be the higher realms, such as yourselves.
Thus, increasing your vibratory rate and your consciousness, and allowing that to affect a collective consciousness in tandem with the accelerated consciousness of the planet herself. Yes.
Right. Well, Gabriel, I so wanted to talk with you to clarify that, so I'm going to transcribe everything you've said, and I'll be with it. And thank you so much for helping to bring more understanding to me and to all of us who will be listening to the earlier discussion with you.
It is our service to humanity. Remember, we are reflections of your higher God selves, of your higher creative selves. And that is how and why you're able to connect with us. In effect, we are one another. And we are in an ascension process as you are as well. And through assisting one another, we evolve simultaneously at different points of reality. Farewell, dear friends.
Thank you so much, Gabriel.